Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you today with Batman 217. Now, before we jump into this issue, I definitely want to give a giant thank you to everybody down in the comments of the YouTube videos and on social media. Thank you all for finally setting the record straight. Because I remember in my Denny O'Neil Batman reviews, I was saying, well, when did Batman, or Bruce Wayne and Alfred move into this penthouse? And you were telling me Batman 217. So I went and finally found an affordable version online because I called all my local comic shops and it was sold out. And I was like, oh, I do not want to go online. But I wanted to read it and I wanted to review it for y'all. So for those of you that left the comments, let me know what issue this was. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all very much. Now, what's cool is at this point, this book right here, this isn't Denny O'Neil. This isn't Neal Adams' interior art. However, this cover right here is Neal Adams. And I have to laugh because, you're looking at the cover and he's got that nice dynamicness going on. Batman just storming out. You get Robbins' uniform in the background. Alfred just in anguish and he goes, "Take a last look, Alfred. Then seal up the Batcave forever." And it's not as dramatic as that in this sense. Because Batman's not PO'd like he is on this cover. But nonetheless, awesome work by Adams here. I wonder if he knew that he was eventually going to be working on the main Bat title, but who knows. But anyway, with that said, let's go ahead and jump into this because this was actually a really entertaining detective and human interest story. And one thing I do want to add is this book, the print date was December 1969. Whew. And from what I gathered, I kind of was looking online about this book, and I don't know if this is official. If anyone knows if it's official, let me know down in the comments, because for those of you that have, I appreciate it because it really helps me get my comic history straight. But from what I gathered is a lot of people consider this to be the beginning of the Bronze Age of Batman because things started getting a little more serious and a less silly like the Silver Age and all that good stuff. So this story was called One Bullet Too Many. The writer is Frank Robbins. The penciler is Irv Novick. The inks was Dick Giordano. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. And then the letters was Ben Oda. I couldn't find a letter artist. So when it says, the pencils or whatnot, I don't know if it was Novick or Giordano doing it. So if you guys know, let me know. Because back in the day, they would just do things like this, where it'd say art, Novick, and Giordano, so you'd have to assume one of them was doing the colors too, and then story, Frank Robbins. But a lot of these older books, they don't give us the rundown like all these newer ones. So what's important about this issue in particular is Dick Grayson is grown up. This is him leaving for college at Hudson University. And I like how Frank Robbins here says, a desperately lonely day in the life of Bruce Wayne, guardian and friend to young Dick Grayson. A day always dreaded, always expected, but never quite prepared for. Which is exactly what every parent goes through. Like, I'm a new father, and I'm already, thinking about, oh man, when he goes off to college, it's gonna break my heart. But anyway, and then Bruce echoes how every parent would feel looking at their kid's empty room. All here, as it used to be, but no longer the same. Didn't think I'd take it this hard. You never know till it's too late. Now, normally I don't like to read panel for panel, but this opening, the way that Robbins really shows Bruce's struggle with Dick leaving and becoming a man of his own. And he even says here, like, even though, as you saw in the last panel, Dick's room looks relatively clean, he lifts up the sheets. And just like with every young kid, same messy habits, even to the end. Sloppy kid. And I'm getting even sloppier. And I just like that. It shows that he's trying to, he's like, he's sloppy, but he's breaking down because this is his parents saying goodbye. Now, we see Dick here. He's all smiles and he goes, "Ah, come on, fellas, we're all grown up now. Stop acting like you're attending my funeral." So you see this, bright-eyed, chippered kid, and he's just, like, I know it's gonna be pretty rough on you guys in the beginning, Guess it's kind of hard for you to dig that only yesterday. I was your young Master Dick, Alfred. And you're a kid who needed a big brother image, Bruce. But I'm a man now. At least that's what my draft card says. Because you gotta remember, at this time, this was Vietnam. So if you weren't in college, you basically were up for draft, I think is how it works. So, there's a lot of people saying stay in school because, they don't want to be drafted. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. Just kind of want to add some context of the year here. Now, again, Bruce, Dick is still smiling. He goes, plus my acceptance at Hudson University. So I'd prefer to go to the airport alone, meaning how he's a man now. However, this next panel, I like how the art team sets this up, and I love how Robbins paced it and how the art team just kind of built up to it, because now the card dries off. I hate long goodbyes. So you see how we go from this bright, shiny, chipper young man, ready for college, and then we're saying goodbye to his parents. And you can see that he didn't want to break down in front of them because he wanted to be strong, because he saw that they were already agonizing enough. And as much as kids hate to admit it, as much as they're excited to strike out on their own, I'm speaking from experience because I felt this when I went to college. I'm like, we'll be fine. But then a couple of nights later, you're settled in, you're excited, but then there's that quiet moment. And you start thinking home. And it hits you just like that. So, bravo, Robbins. That was some great pacing about how parents and kids handle going off to college. Now, when I was talking about the cover, how, Bruce and Batman saying, take one last look, Alfred, and seal up the Batcave forever. What it is here, you would think, because Bruce immediately goes down to the Batcave. And he's talking about, we're in grave danger of becoming outmoded, obsolete dodos of the mod world outside. Because I think now, for you long-time readers, let me know if I'm reading this wrong. Because, I've got some age on me, but not enough. When he's talking about the mod world outside, is he talking about, like, the Beatles trend? Because that's what the Beatles look was. Before they became the psychedelic ones, they had those flat cuts, and it was called the mod look, I think is what it was. So I'm not sure if that's a reference. Let me know for those that remember this time. But anyway, this is where Robbins basically gets Batman out of Wayne Manor and into the heart of Gotham. He's talking about how we need to be streamlined and just working with the clothes off of our back, which is a really cool idea, which is basically saying, like, Batman working on his feet instead of having the luxuries of going back to the suburbs of Wayne Manor and having everything at the disposal in the Batcave. And then I kind of like how Robbins, this is my personal opinion here. Bruce says, today, this new breed of rat uses the modern weapons of phony respectability, big business fronts, legal cover-ups, and hides in the fortress towers of Gotham's metropolis. We're moving out of the suburb sanctuary to live in the heart of that sprawling urban blight, to dig them out where they live and fatten on the innocent. So I kind of like how this is sort of and what I was talking about, in my opinion, is it sounds like it's kind of throwing away that Silver Age feeling where every bad guy drives like a yellow old school Dodge and shoots guns, or is hokey like the Joker originally was. This is talking about like corporate greed, mafia, controlling a good part of the city. So I really like this. And so it makes, as I was just saying, how it feels like maybe Bruce's idea of leaving Gotham, or not Gotham, of the Batcave, you think that's kind of rash because of Dick leaving. However, this explains, and it makes perfect sense what he's saying. Sure, though I wonder if back in the day when people started reading this, they're like, wait, how can we get Batman out of the cave? And then this is where, as I was asking everybody, in my older Batman reviews, I was saying, where did they end up in the penthouse? And this is where they end up in the Wayne Fountain. Y'all can always tell when I've not had enough coffee. Wayne Foundation Penthouse. So Bruce starts talking about setting up this plan where, because the Wayne Foundation, it basically kind of like helps those in need in like urban development areas. And so Bruce says here, because we may have to do a lot of learning leaning on each other in the days to come. Especially since now, as Bruce Wayne, I'll be keeping a closer eye on Foundation affairs by night. And socking it to him by night. That reminds me of, what's that song called? The Tequila, da-na-na-na-na-na. Yeah, that one. And then from Ninja Turtles, I think it was Leonardo, when they're singing, they go, sock it to me. And I'm just like, oh boy. Kind of horny, corny. Wow. See, not enough coffee. You can see here, just because the dated slang, which is really cool because it's like opening up a time capsule. So the meat and potatoes of this story starts where we start reading about this Susan Fieldings, and her husband was gunned down trying to help a gunshot victim. And in doing so, he ended up getting killed. And the police are kind of baffled, and just everyone's sort of kind of calling it a unsolved mystery. And Bruce is like, we're setting up a special assistant program here to aid these people. Now check this out. What I like is how how these two always sharpen each other. That's why you always want to be around people that sharpen one another, because it helps you build and expound on ideas. Alfred says, we're the idea, sir. While these poor victims are forgotten by the public, to us they're very important people. VIPs, you might say. So this is where Bruce comes up with the idea of Victims Inc. program, which is kind of neat. Apparently he's always setting up inks, Victims Inc., Batman Inc., maybe the next one will be Robin Inc., who knows. Anyway, he goes to visit Fielding, and she's obviously in mourning because this is relatively fresh to her. And so Bruce is trying to explain, well, at first she doesn't give a minute to introduce. She thinks at first he's a debt collector or a policeman or a DA's office. And Bruce just says, perhaps if you weren't so full of self-pity, you could aid your husband's memory more. And she goes, what? What right have you? And smack. So check this out for all of you. It's like, take that, Batman, for slapping Robin in that meme. Payback. But it's a moment because, she's hurt. And, of course, she's going to lash out. She just lost her husband. And Bruce didn't exactly, use his Wayne savvy there. So anyway, he finally explains what he wants to do. And she goes, well, I don't want your charity. And he goes, well, instead of charity, how about I give you an indefinite loan with no interest? And she goes, you'd be a fool, but I'll take it. And then he says, well, can you give me some of the details? I'm friends with Batman. And so she goes through talking about what happened. And what I like is that she's explaining how her husband was gunned down. We start seeing these silhouettes of Batman. And so while Bruce is kind of sort of playing dumb, we see the inner Bat starting to think and poking out what's going to go on. And then that's where Batman gets on the case. Man, there are a lot of ads in this book. And starts to stake out her office because she's like, well, I didn't see the killer's face. He says, well, the killer doesn't know that. So what he does, speaking of which, let me back up a page. I got a little ahead of myself here. Got to go back to the ads and the letters. Was it here? Yeah, okay, here it is. Sorry, this is one of those little blurbs that you really have to pay attention to. So what Batman does is, as Fielding says, he goes, with Susan's go-ahead, Batman wastes no time becoming a man of 1,000 faces. So I like how the art team and how Robbins paces the art team here, how he uses all his different faces through Gotham to spread in the underworld that, hey, this Susan Fielding's character saw the killer's face. So with that said, now we can jump ahead. Sorry about that, guys. Now as he sees the last appointment leaving, he notices a man in the sun coming in. And so at this point, they're looking for like someone in a sling or with a limp because there's obviously the gunshot victim was shot. However, the little boy runs out for a reason. What reason? Read the book. And he goes, guess the kid doesn't take to doctors very well, even pretty ones. Hold it. That boy is kind of down at the hill to have such a well-dressed father. Now, I had to stop. I was like, what does down at the hill mean? Again, this is just one of those slangs like mod. And what it means, I actually looked up the thing, and it says like meaning worn down, like neglected shoes. So good old 1969 slang of sock it to 'em and the likes. But yeah, that's what it means. Bruce notices the kid's shoes are worn down at the heel, so you see that this is kind of like a street rat. So Bruce at that moment notices that the father is a phony. Now some other things happen that cause Batman to tell the policeman to check a certain bullet. What I say by that, there's something that happens with Batman. Check that out. The bullet from the husband and a bullet from the victim. And so there's this whole thing. And I really like how Robbins, I wonder if he actually like studied any type of like detective stories like how Castlewood in that TV show to kind of get this idea, because it's really cool how he throws everybody for a loop. But nonetheless, I think that's all I want to show you guys, because I don't want to ruin this comic book. I kind of wanted to just kind of hit some keynotes and some things that made me laugh, especially with Robin leaving for college. I mean, that was all his introduction in this book was, but it really had an impact, because at this point, you don't know if there's going to be any more Batman or Robin. Now, there was someone that I was talking to down in the comments, and they said starting with this issue, Batman stayed in the penthouse all the way up until somewhere in the 80s. So starting here, I think I'm going to kind of start expounding, because I like to try to find a jumping point, and then I'll try to collect those and then start filling in gaps in old ways. But if that's true, that's really cool, because it really took Batman out of his normal element as we see him now, where he's always at the Wayne Manor, or even like how Grant Morrison switched it up and put Dick Grayson and Damian in the penthouse during the Batman and Robin series pre-Flashpoint, which if you haven't read that, that is also an excellent story. And if you've enjoyed this comic book, please make sure to first check with your local comic shop and see if they've gotten any in, see if anybody's traded them in. If not, then go to the third-party market, which is what I had to do, because at the time I was just like, crud, and I really wanted this book. And if you've enjoyed this review, we'd really appreciate it if you take a minute to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little bat bell next to subscribe, then when we get content uploaded, you guys will get notified. Come to the channel, and we love to hear your feedback and have a dialogue with y'all down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the comments below. So with all that said, thank y'all so much for stopping by. I hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.